I'm Luke Summerhays, and I love Axew. There are certain patterns of Pokemon which repeat generation after generation. Early game mammals and birds, bugs with a chrysalis middle stage, trios of legendaries, and so on. One common group is called by fans the pseudo-legendaries. Often dragon types, these are three-stage evolutionary families which evolve at high levels but, if a player puts the effort into training them, can be incredibly powerful. As an unofficial classification, there can be a lot of debate about what counts. Metagross and Tyranitar seem to fit, but are not dragon-type Pokemon, for example. In Japan, the group are called the 600 Club, referring to their stats totaling 600. This led to some debate online around the Pokemon Archaludon recently, a dragon type with a stat total of 600, but only a second evolution. Before that were other Pokemon who fit most of the bill, but didn't quite have the stats. Flygon, Aggron, and Haxorus. Axew is a cute little dinosaur-like dragon-type Pokemon with a head crest like Parasaurolophus, and two teeth poking out the side of its mouth, giving the appearance that the monster is wielding a little blade. Pokemon Black tells us, "They use their tusks to crush the berries they eat. Repeated regrowth makes their tusks strong and sharp." And Pokemon White tells us, "They mark their territory by leaving gashes in trees with their tusks. If a tusk breaks, a new one grows in quickly." Axew's tusks somewhat resemble piercings as worn by Aztec warriors, or other cultures throughout human history, and often depicted in problematic imagery of quote-unquote savages. As a member of the 5th generation, the first set in the Americas, a reference to the Aztecs or other ancient peoples wouldn't be inappropriate. Pokemon Scarlet even says, "This Pokemon lives in nests that are made in the ground. People in ancient times used its tusks as cooking knives." The name Axew combines axe, referring to the blades it has, with perhaps chew, because the axe is in its mouth. Its Japanese name is Kibago, from the Japanese for fang and jaw. Axew was for a long time the mascot partner Pokemon for the anime version of Iris, the gym leader cum champion of Unova, who joined Ash for the Unova season. It was a scrappy little fighter, even going toe-to-toe with Cynthia's Garchomp. At level 38, which is quite high, but not outrageous compared to other Generation 5 Pokemon, or the pseudo-legendaries, Axew will evolve into Fraxure. With longer, even more blade-like tusks, and an armour-like carapace with a hood behind the head, Fraxure resembles a Krogan warrior from the Mass Effect series. Pokemon Shield tells us, "Its skin is as hard as a suit of armour. Fraxure's favourite strategy is to tackle its opponents, stabbing them with its tusks at the same time." Pokemon White tells us, "Their tusks can shatter rocks. Territory battles between Fraxure can be intensely violent." Unlike Axew, whose tusks grew back quickly, Fraxure must take care of its tusks like a samurai's prized blades. Pokemon Black tells us, "Since a broken tusk will not grow back, they diligently sharpen their tusks on river rocks after they've been fighting." The name, Fraxure, takes the axe from the previous form and incorporates it into the fractures it will cause in rock and bones. The Japanese name is Onondo, from the Japanese for axe, Ono. After only 10 levels, we can say goodbye to Fraxure, when, at level 48, it evolves into Haxorus. In an interview, series director Junichi Masuda and long-serving Pokemon lead artist Ken Sugimori revealed that Haxorus was the first Generation 5 Pokemon designed, having originally been drawn as part of the interview process for a new artist. Now covered head-to-toe in golden armour, Haxorus is a full curved blade axe on its head and a slender dragon-like body. Pokemon Black tells us, "They are kind, but can be relentless when defending territory. They challenge foes with tusks that can cut steel. And Pokemon White tells us, the sturdy tusks will stay sharp, even if used to cut steel beams. These Pokemon are covered in hard armor. Welcome back to Moils on Mon, Axew.
Another one of my Gen 5 team. Because you've got to have a dragon. That's the James J. Moyles tip of the day. Got to have a dragon. And this is a very cool dragon. It's a bit of a weird design, right? Like in the nose blade that it's got, or is it fangs? I could never really work it out.
I think they're fangs, just fangs at a funny angle, yeah.
Yeah, like it's got a real dental problem, but obviously it puts that to good use. Axew, I'm not big on Axew as a design. I think I'm more about in this line, again, Fraxure, that awkward middle stage. I'm more about Haxorus, like just a cool looking dude, right? Just those the fangs don't look as awkward anymore. They've kind of like curved out into like blades, like proper blades. You could see him using them in a battle. Looks proper hench. And would just destroy every team that he runs into with his absolutely terrifying attacks. He is a cool dude, and I give him a big thumbs up and thank him for his service.
Jay did well to have this Pokemon on his team. Despite not quite having the stats to be a pseudo-legendary, it had excellent physical attack and decent speed, alongside the Mold Breaker ability, which let it attack through other Pokemon's abilities. Throw in Dragon Dance or Swords Dance, and you have a real dragon on your hands. Interestingly, it also saw competitive use with its other ability, Rivalry. This ability boosts stats against opponents of the same gender, but halves it against opponents of the opposite gender. This might seem like a roll of the dice, but when the scene was dominated by the all-male genie Pokemon, a male Haxorus could go a long way. The name, Haxorus, takes axe and hack, with the suffix saurus, as many dinosaurs have. The Japanese name, Ononocus, takes another dinosaur suffix, onocus. Haxorus was a key Pokemon in Gen 5's Elite Four and Gyms, either under Iris or Drayden, depending on which version one was playing. In the anime, when Iris returned for Pokemon Journeys, her Axew had evolved into a Haxorus. This is a cool family of dragons, well worth evolving all the way. A slightly too low stat total might exude it from the made-up 600 club, but to me it still deserves a place among the greats. Perhaps it's a pseudo-legendary. Original music for Luke Loves Pokemon is by Jonathan Cromie. Artwork is by Katie Groves. Funding is provided by listeners at patreon.com/podcastio-podcastius. For just $1 a month, supporters can listen to episodes a week early, and also help cover hosting and fees, making it possible for me to keep making episodes every week. I love hearing from listeners. Get in touch about upcoming Pokemon on Twitter or Facebook at LukeLovesPKMN. Drop a comment if you're watching the video, or a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Coming up are Cubchoo and Cryogonal, so please get in touch about those or any other monsters. Even if you don't feel like doing any of that, thank you so much just for listening. I love Axew, and remember, I love you too.